So it's like good comment.
I'd like to call the council meeting to order. And would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Gretchen Davis.
Present.
Councilmember John Hagenow.
Present.
Member Carol Kerr. Here. Councilmember Aaron Permette. Councilmember Dan Sullivan.
Here.
Councilmember Valerie Fista.
Here.
Mayor Riley.
Present.
There are 7 members present.
Thank you. The next item is the approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Or if anyone would like to have something removed from the agenda, they can. Councilmember Davis.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Motion carried by a vote of 7-0. The next item, I'll turn over to the town manager, is proclamation.
Okay, I'm kind of excited about this proclamation. I've known the Smith family for a long time. Mike and Margaret and their children, they're not so young anymore, Mike and Kelly, but for over 40 years, we have had in Keystone, Wine in the Pines, one of our better fundraisers up here, in my opinion. And this fundraiser is for Agility Colorado. It used to be Cerebral Palsy of Colorado. And they are having their annual Wine in the Pines this Friday and Saturday. Saturday is the main event. You can still get tickets to it. Just go online, Google Wine in the Pines. It's a good time and always has been. And in honor of their 40th anniversary, I've presented a proclamation I'd like the town council to approve, and I will read it out. Proclamation, Town of Keystone, Colorado, a proclamation of the mayor and town council recognizing Wine in the Pines 40th anniversary. Whereas 40 years ago, Mike and Margaret Smith and their daughter Kelly began Wine in the Pines to raise money for Ability Connection Colorado. And whereas Keystone is proudly served as the annual location for Wine in the Pines, and whereas proceeds from the event benefit Ability Connection Colorado's Kelly Smith Employment Program, which helps provide statewide employment services to at-risk youth and adults seeking employment, skills development, and benefit assistance. And whereas the 2024 Wine in the Pines events will be held on October 25th and 26th, and whereas the town of Keystone wholeheartedly supports the efforts and achievements of Wine in the Pines. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the mayor and the town council of Keystone, of Keystone, Colorado do hereby honor and proclaim the 24th and 25th days of October 2024 as Wine in the Pines 40th anniversary in the town of Keystone, Colorado. I guess probably a motion.
If I can have a motion. Any comments or? Yes, Councilmember Kerr.
You have 2 different sets of dates. October 25 and 26 in no whereases, and October 24 and 25 in the actual proclamation.
Let me double check my calendar. It's Friday and Saturday.
I don't really care which one.
It's
Yours both the same.
If you would fix the
25th and 26th, we'll fix that and get it figured out correctly. Sorry.
Councilmember Parmet.
I regret that I will not be able to attend as I'll be in New Mexico, but I've been to Wine in the Pines before. And it was a great fundraiser. It's a great community event. Mike has put on great shows for great causes. And well, I was really worried that after COVID, it wasn't coming back. And I would send in messages like, every September, saying, this is, are you gonna do it? Are you gonna do it? And I was very excited to hear that it was back. That's all.
Any other discussion? Councilmember Kerr.
I regret that I've never gone to Wine in the Pines. Now you've brought my attention to it, I will. However, I wonder if we can be very specific and identify it as Wine in the Pines fundraiser or Wine in the Pines charity event. Because my first look was, is this a commercial enterprise? And that's not. I just urge specificity.
So when I'm changing the dates, I'll
Yeah.
change those.
So, thank you.
Any other comments? Can I have a motion? Councilmember Permit.
Motion to pass the resolution with the aforementioned changes.
Councilmember Davis.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? The motion is carried with a vote of 7-0. The next item is communications to council. If anyone, this is your opportunity to speak to us and raise any issues you would like, except for discussion of the two public hearing periods that we're going to have tonight. One having to deal with one dealing with the I'm just looking here, the land use matter, the class 4 appeal. We will have a public hearing on that as a quasi judicial, and the other one was the ordinance. No, I had a second. Oh, the budget public hearing, I'm sorry. I was looking for an ordinance for the public, budget public hearing, because you have an opportunity to speak when those items come up. And I would ask you to please line up behind the podium if you'd like to speak, and don't wait till the next first person finishes speaking. And you'll be limited to 3 minutes, and the council will not be responding to your comments. Please state your name and where you live.
My name is Julie Olson, and I'm a full-time resident homeowner and business owner in Loveland Pass Village. Do appreciate all your hard work. I'm sure it's not easy setting you up from scratch, so I appreciate that. I'm very concerned about Keystone as a town and the direction it seems we're headed. I feel I've seen some very disappointing behavior by a few town council members that make me feel like I'm not respected as a constituent, and I felt mocked by voicing my concern. Not openly, I've felt that way. Some of you do not hide your feelings very well. Grimacing, grunts, even eye rolling. As ridiculous as it sounds, I want to express to you that I feel like a 5-year-old in a step family that tells me to sit down, shut up, and we will take care of you because we know best. Talking to you all as a council has made me feel like talking to a brick wall. That being said, I would like to propose that the council consider allowing public concerns / comments for a set amount of time at the beginning of your work sessions. Our comments do not make a difference to you if you've already made up your mind about our concern. Also, public comments about issues that are on the agenda should be allowed. Again, what good does it do if you don't hear our concerns when you're going to address the issue we are concerned about? A few additional concerns. Our charter is less than a year old and you're already considering changing it. I don't understand how this is okay. Keystone's short-term rental regulations have been lazily adopted from what Summit County has already set in place before we came to town. I do not have an argument against short-term rentals, just where they are located. It should have been our council's priority to establish zones within town limits where short-term rentals are allowed. You need to address the fact that real people with real jobs with average income work here and live here, and we need places to live here, not just retired folks that have relocated to the mountain. These people like us that I just talked about want neighborhoods filled with homes with other local people, not empty homes waiting for out-of-towners to overfill the street with their vacationing revelry. And you've still not addressed a pause on new developments. What is wrong with pausing developments until we have an infrastructure to handle what we have already? Why are these things not a priority? I believe you could address these concerns while you're doing the box checking of setting up our town. We are a town with a resort connected, not a resort. We made sure of that with a vote. The council needs to consider the real people with real lives that reside here. And it's disappointing that a recent priority of the town council has been their comfort and convenience while deciding our town's fate. We as residents need answers to these concerns. Please start making us feel excited about becoming a town, not terrified that our town council has ulterior motives, because this is how many of us feel at the moment.
Thank you.
Everyone, Julie Sauber, live in Loveland Pest Village. My comments only being after a local meeting we had with the mayor and town clerk for the residents of LPV. I wanted to submit a public comment on nuisance and noise ordinance laws for the town because I feel we are coming close to a vote. I went on the Keystone.gov website because we were told we could submit our comments directly to the town clerk and the powers that be. But what I found was going to the contact us page was the general information email and a contact us form. I submitted my comment via the form, but received no follow-up that it was received, nor do I know if it was routed to the appropriate people, which would be all of you here. My recommendations are that the website offers better communication and how to contact our local representatives and/or gives directions should you want to give a statement regarding items to vote. Case in point, recently, about a year or two ago in Summit County, we all talked about the local permitting for the marijuana permit that was going to be in our village. The county allowed us to submit a public comment via an email prior to the vote permitting on ordinances. I feel you should give us the same right too. Thank you.
Mr. Town Manager, would you please get with her later and address the issues of inability to get comments in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Mhm.
I'm Mitch Malakar. I live at 237 Razor Drive, Keystone, Loveland Pest Village. I haven't really attended these meetings except for when we did the, what's the word for it? The pre-township meetings, the incorporation meetings. So I'm definitely a little out of the loop, but now that I'm trying to get back in the loop, I'm a little shocked at how hard it is for the people to talk with the council. And I'm actually shocked that one of the things, Mr. Mayor, you said there won't be any interaction between the speakers and the council. It's like, well, where's the dialogue? How do we really get to express our opinions? Including not being able to speak about tonight's agenda items the night of.
One comment.
Sure.
You're allowed to speak on any agenda item tonight, except for the two that we have for the hearing, where we've provided an opportunity to speak during those hearings.
And when were the hearings?
The hearings are tonight.
No, when were the hearings?
The hearings have not occurred. They're happening tonight.
So am I misinformed on,
We have
do
two.
you not have to be here the week before to make comment on tonight's agenda items? Am I misinformed on that?
You do not.
That's not what I understand. Should that turn out to be the case, what would be the procedure for changing that policy within the council?
Well, please discuss that with the town manager.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments? Is there anyone who'd like to speak online? No? In that case,
Hi, Christy Camp from Ski Tip. I've addressed the council before, and I continue to just send town manager emails, like updates once a month, just to shed some positive comments. This town and location could not be in a more stellar position to be a leader
in sustainability and how we use energy, how we use minerals. And I know we've already gotten funding for those things. I am looking forward to continuing to inform you of not just the Summit County support of the town of Keystone being a leader, also just the short-term and long-term benefits of engagement. It's a beautiful opportunity to have families and everyone in the town be involved. And kind of a long-term vision would be more of a, has anyone been to a European hut? Kind of that type of long-term sustainability goal of a European hut. Just trying to give a brief synopsis of some good ideas that are flowing through to the town manager once a month. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? All right, in that case, I will declare the public communications to council portion closed. And with that, we move to the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything they'd like to remove from the consent agenda? Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Councilmember Sullivan?
Yeah, move to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Motion is passed by a vote of 7-0. The next item is goes into new business, and we're considering, the first item is resolutions. And with that, I'll turn it over to the town manager, resolution 2024-60.
Okay, and I will turn this over to our community development director and our commenter. Oh, no, this is mine. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm not alone.
You're not alone. So, this is the child care assistance IGA that we discussed at the last town workshop meeting, and I need to pull up my packet here. If you'll excuse me a second. Up the workshop packet, sorry. No, that should have been. I'm sorry, I know where I'm at. Excuse me. I scroll down. So this is the child care assistance IGA. As we discussed, the county set up a pre-K program, and the towns in the county realized that the pre-K program, which only addressed people the year before kindergarten, missed out on helping families who have children 3 years or younger pay the exorbitant childcare costs that we have in the county. I'm still scrolling down to my memo here. About a 1041 stuff. The estimated cost, I'll get through to this. We still haven't gotten word whether the county's going to pick up the $1 million shortfall. So the estimated cost to the town would be somewhere between $40,000 and $70,000. And what that does is it helps offset the tuition costs for children who are enrolled in daycare programs throughout the county whose family demonstrate need, where these daycare programs are costing them, I believe it's somewhere between 15 and 20% of their income. The town of Keystone has 3.27% of the children in the county who are in these programs are the families who need help with these programs. Every other town in the county, except for Montezuma, has joined in on this IGA and help support offset the cost for working parents in the county. I'm there now finally, so, it's really important. We've all seen restaurants closed, we've all seen shops closed, not because they can't do business, but because they can't get the workforce. And they can't get the workforce because lots of times it costs it costs the parents' entire income to pay for the childcare so that parent can work. In that case, it's better for the parent just to stay home with their child rather than trying to make it work. A lot of this money will come from our nicotine tax, excess nicotine tax. However, some of it will have to come out from the general fund. Are there any questions about the IGA that we haven't addressed, or any other questions?
Any questions? Councilmember Kerr.
So we've talked about this several times, and I think the opportunity to help working families with childcare assistance is compelling. On balance, we have charged with responsibly managing the people's money. So when we talked about this 2 weeks ago, my understanding was the proposal was to join the IGA and later decide on what would be a charitable donation. Is that?
No, if we join the IGA, we're committed to pay our
Okay,
share of the.
that's how I read the IGA.
Yeah.
We have obligations.
Yes,
and the
those obligations never extend beyond a single year for any municipality.
So my understanding is, if I'm reading the budget correctly, we will realize about $83,000 in nicotine tax this year. And we will be obliged to give 27 for smoking cessation education, which is what it's raised for.
Yep.
And you explained to us that that net difference of 56K could be available for this purpose. But now you're saying the requirement would be 5. So would you remind us
No,
where, well, I see 100K in here, and you just said we couldn't cover it all with nicotine tax money. So
we
could you
might
give us
not,
a hard number?
yes, we might not be able to cover it all with nicotine tax dollars.
So what is all? And who said that?
It's set by how much we bring in the nicotine tax, which is determined by the nicotine sales. The point I'm making is if we sign into this IGA, I think the town council really needs to be prepared in a worst case scenario. If the grocery store stops selling cigarettes, our nicotine income disappears. So does our obligation, because that to the nicotine cessation programs, because that money is earmarked as coming from the nicotine tax. However, let's assume the nicotine money dries up. We're still in the child care IGA. And that would be a commitment that the council would have to come up with out of the general fund budget if they still wanted to be in the IGA, where towns are only committed annually. If we don't budget for it, we don't have an obligation to pay for it.
So you misunderstood my point about all. What is our obligation this year by signing the IGA?
It would be next year's obligation, and it would be $41,000 to $71,000.
Seems 100 somewhere in these.
No, that I put in the budget because there might be other charitable issues that the council would choose to donate to. That's why I budgeted that in the budget. So the 100,000 is not for this alone. It's under charitable donations. This is just one charitable donation. We have not identified any other charitable donations at this time. However, I've put money in the budget in case the council so desires to make other charitable donations in the future.
So the specific obligation, $71,000 in 2025.
at the maximum.
And if all things are even, we could have an additional 56K nicotine tax money available to put toward this.
Correct.
And that we'd have to pull out of general operating funds from the town.
Good. Correct. The nicotine.
Best
Yes,
scenario.
yes, yep. Well, best scenario is $41,000. If the county kicks in $1 million from the Strong Futures funds.
Well, not to belabor this, but I thought we were gonna wait till we determined whether council was gonna
Well,
push that in, so we knew what we were signing on for.
well, my understanding was the council, and I could very well have been wrong, felt that this was a program that we need to move forward with regardless of money coming in from the county or the nicotine tax. That was my understanding.
Councilmember Hickman.
That was also my understanding is that, excuse me, best case scenario, we have an excess of nicotine tax funding that would then be able to be used for other things. Worst case scenario, the town would be on the hook for a smaller portion of the total cost. That was my understanding from the council meeting last, 2 weeks ago.
And am I correct or incorrect that if during the budget process that began last week and will end with budget approval sometime in December probably, that if the council were to choose not to fund this, then we would just withdraw from the IGA?
Correct. Yes.
So this is not technically not an obligation, does not obligate us to appropriate those funds in December.
Not legally, just
Morally.
Well, that was my understanding of what we said. Go ahead.
yeah, we're not up. No government in Colorado is obligated for any funds unless they are specifically budgeted. Beyond any annual year. Anything longer than a year. There are very few contracts you can enter into longer than a year as a town government that are binding over multiple years.
And is 71,000 the number based on this year or the number for next year?
That's the number for next year.
And the lower number if the county keeps it 100 is how much?
41,000 approximately.
And where are they getting these numbers? And I assume the board, the members of the IJ pick both.
The numbers come from the Early Childhood Options, which oversees the program. It's a budget that's put together and approved by the board of the Child Care IGA, which is made up of the town managers and the county manager.
Any other questions or comments? And I then have a motion one way or the other regarding the resolution. Councilmember Sullivan?
Yeah, I move to approve resolution 2024-60, a resolution of County Council of Keystone, Colorado, approving the intergovernmental agreement for Summit County Child Care Tuition Assistance.
Is there a second? Councilmember Davis?
Second.
All right, now we come to discussion and the debate portion. Any comments?
I just wanted to summarize it as I understand it. So worst case, 71,000, and if we get no nicotine, that's 71,000 coming out of the budget. If we get the nicotine, it's 56 less than out of the 71,000.
Yeah, if we get the nicotine, if the nicotine taxes come in at 83,000 and the nicotine expenditures at 27,000, we'll have, what is that, 54, 56.
Is that reduced? So is that 71 is funded by 56?
No, you can choose to do it. The other attorneys for the other towns have determined that this is an acceptable expenditure of the nicotine dollars.
And then if the county kicks in, it doesn't have 40 months, it have 56 would actually cover the entire expense. Yes. So really our risk is no nicotine, we're out 71,000. If we have nicotine, we're reducing our general by 20,000. If the county kicks in and we have nicotine, then we actually, it's a freebie.
Most likely, yes.
That's the way I understand.
Yes. So our ultimate financial risk for next year is $71,000 for this program.
Any other comments? The childcare program, I feel is very, very important for our community, particularly our working families. I find that our participation rate in that right now very low. I would hope that would increase over time. Of course, that would then necessitate an increased obligation to go forward. It would give us a decision point of whether or not we wanted to increase the obligations in future years as we go forward. So with that, are there one last chance for comments? Councilmember Kerr.
So I'm gonna go back to my first statement. I think this is a compelling need. I wish there were other ways to do this, but I want to know what we're voting on. And it sounds like, assuming the nicotine tax is flat, then we're voting for an additional 15K to come out of the general operating funds. Does that sound?
An additional 15 to, and it's actually 74,587 is the max.
Okay.
So that would be 33
Right.
plus, so 15 to 48,000 if the nicotine. Well.
Okay, do that
Yeah,
again and follow.
so 27,000 goes to the nicotine,
Right.
yeah,
That leaves
Yeah.
56 available
yep.
against a 71K
That's
obligation.
Maximum of
74.
74,000.
So now we're talking. Okay, just
Yeah.
want to make sure we understand what we're voting on.
Yeah.
So,
But it could be up to a total $74,000 obligation if, for instance, our few stores that sell cigarettes stop selling nicotine products. So,
With that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? Did your hand go up, Councilmember? So I didn't see the hand. I was looking. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I didn't miss a vote. So the vote is 9-0. You say 7. Excuse me. Keep on as to move us up to 9. 7 to in favor, 0 opposed. The resolution is passed. The next item is the resolution 2024-63, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Keystone, Colorado, approving the intergovernmental agreement regarding liquor code regulation and enforcement at Mountain House Lodge. Mr. Town Manager.
okay. I am lost on this one. Yeah, that was in the consent.
Yeah,
agenda.
we're at the
Okay,
2024-60.
I'm sorry. I've looked up resolution 2024-67, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Keystone, Colorado, instructing staff to complete the Proposition 1, 2, 3 process.
so between the two of us,
Thank
we'll
you for
figure out
the-
where we are on this agenda. It's not just me thinking. This was the Proposition 123 commitment that we discussed in the workshop. And this is simply a resolution instructing staff to complete the opt-in and commitment process for 7 units before January 1st, or to acquire or somehow, build or somehow acquire 7 more affordable housing units by January 1st, 2027, to make that commitment and to opt into Proposition 120.
Does anyone have any questions? No questions or comments? With that, can I have a motion? Councilmember Hagenel.
Here we go. So I make a motion to approve the town of Keystone resolution 2024-67. A resolution of town council of the town of Keystone, Colorado, instructing staff to complete the Proposition 123 commitment process.
There's a second, Councilmember Sullivan.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion or debate? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? The motion is carried by a vote of 7-0. The next item is the resolution 2024-68, a resolution of the town council of the town of Keystone, Colorado, approving amended I would like to, based on the discussion that we had in executive session, in work session. Boy, it's been a long day. In work session, I would like to have a motion to, I'd like to have a motion to defer this item till the next meeting.
So moved.
Yep. Councilmember Kerr,
I second that.
moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hands. Those opposed? Motion carried. Next, we're going to have the a public hearing on the land use, on the land use item, and will the clerk please read that into the agenda? Can you please read it into the record?
Yes. Land use matter TOK 011, Class 4 appeal of the Community Development Director's approval of a Class 2 review for a conditional use permit for a short-term rental STR located at 31 River Overlook Court.
All right, I declare the public hearing open. For this public hearing, we'll be hearing evidence from the town staff regarding the issuance of a conditional use permit for operation of a short-term rental. We'll be opening the hearing with a report from the town staff regarding this application. I'll ask the Community Development Director to address the criteria for issuance of a conditional use permit for a short-term rental. Then the applicant will be allowed to present any evidence of the public with an interest in the application may provide public comments as well. I would then like to note that the town council has reviewed the staff report and all of the referenced application materials and public comments that were part of the packet agenda. And with that, will the Community Development Director now present the staff's findings and evidence regarding the proposed conditional use of permit.
Yes, for the record, Lindsay Hirsch, Community Development Director. Before we jump into this item, I did get one additional letter in opposition for the application. I'd like to enter that into the record. I did receive this today. And I did give the applicant's representative a copy as well. Does anyone else like a copy? All right, with that being said, I would like to give council a little bit of background information. June 11th of this year, the town did adopt ordinance 24 0-07, which was actually the short-term rental regulations. Approximately a month ago, I approved the subject application for the CUP for 23 guests and 6 outdoor parking spaces for the subject property. And at the last agenda, September 24th, 24, this item was placed on the consent agenda. And on a vote of 4-2, it was pulled off the agenda and as such, activated or initiated the appeal process. And that's exactly what we're doing tonight. In my staff report, you will note that there are 6 criteria. I'm gonna hit them all. I am going to request that you do stick to the criteria and matter of fact. So first criteria really honestly deals with public health, safety and welfare of the proposed use and doesn't exceed any applicable codes. The second criteria is there sufficient infrastructure and services available to support the intended use? Third one really speaks, and I think you'll hear some public testimony with regards to this criteria. Preservation of the residential character, any potential adverse impacts as a result of the use. The fourth criteria is separation and buffering. Is there sufficient for the intended use? The fifth is there a history of complaints? And the last criteria is there any other applicable standards or regulations that are relevant to the subject application? So with that being said, I did do an analysis that did support my approval. Basically, what I did was I researched not only the code, but county records with regards to this issue. I did a referral to all applicable agencies, including the building department and EMS, Summit EMS, and there were no issues from a building or fire code standpoint for the occupancy of the proposed use in the structure. I also did contact Snake River Water, Snake River Sand, and they did not have any issues with regards to supplying infrastructure needs for the use. Third one, further in my background information, and it was in my previous staff report as well. This application had been in place for the previous 5 years via the county. And as such, I reached out to the county's STR program manager and also the sheriff's office to see if there were any complaints. Oh, I'm sorry, and also code enforcement with the county to see if there were any documented complaints regarding this use over the previous 5 years, and there were none. With that being said, please note there is an attachment C in your packet that are some public comments regarding that issue. As far as buffering and separation requirements, basically the property is just under an acre in size. And as such, the fact that there were no complaints documented, I would have to believe that it is of sufficient size for the intended use. The fifth criteria, again, there was no documented history of short-term rental complaints for the subject property. If there had been, I would likely have had a different recommendation. Or some other concerns. And last but not least, I'm not aware of any other applicable regulations or rules that are currently in place that would prevent the subject application. With all that being said, staff's recommendation is to uphold my decision regarding the subject application with the findings contained in the attached resolution. So, do you have questions for staff?
Councilmember Hagenow.
Thank you. Yes, my question pertains around, the complaints and how they are like counted or documented. It sounds, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that they are more formal in nature. A sheriff's office deputy responds to this property because of a report that there's 11 cars blocking the road. This would have been a documented complaint that would have come up in your search. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. That would be one case. Another case would be if there had been a noise complaint or parking complaint. The code enforcement officer would have opened up a case, a violation case, and there were none found or documented. And I actually did talk to the code enforcement, and she did confirm that with the county.
Thank you.
Councilmember Davis.
I'm not sure if this is the correct time. And if I'm out of order, please let me know, but I'm looking at page 183 and 184 in our packet. What appears to be the declarations of the HOA. There's a highlighted section there. My question is, as a town, do we have the power to overlook declarations, which are signed by each owner when they buy a property?
Supporting clarification, overlook, you
Well,
mean enforce?
no, ignore. It refers to restrictions on use. Or it refers to restrictions on use for the lots in the HOA. I just want to understand.
Well, my initial response was, those are not our regulations to enforce. Those are HOA regs. Would the town attorney like to add anything to that?
I don't have anything else to add.
Mr. Town Manager, would you like to comment?
No, other than I believe our community development director has that correct. We cannot enforce HOA rules that are not our rules. It's the HOA's obligation. And if you approve this conditional use permit, then the HOA can still enforce their regulations, and that would supersede your approval.
Councilmember Thisted.
You mentioned that you researched complaints, documented complaints. I'm wondering if you had any conversations with the HOA regarding complaints from neighbors that were directed towards the HOA rather than the sheriff or STRs. Generally, it's my experience that they go through the HOA.
That's an excellent question. Also, all correspondence that I received via the HOA, and since this case was initiated, are accurately documented in your package. So that's all the information I have is in attachment C.
Councilmember Hagenow.
Thank you. On page 163, we have, in the staff report, the residence is almost 9,000 square feet, et cetera, is requesting 4 additional occupants and 1 additional parking space. In the document from the property management, I'm blanking on the name, the heart of. Well, they said, quote, the property will continue to serve as a high-end rental accommodation for up to 23 guests. Where's the delta there? Because it seems like that the property is already operating at that higher threshold, and it seems like I read your staff report as they're requesting for additional to be at that threshold.
I can understand your confusion. So the previous conditional use permit that was issued by the county ran for 5 years. In essence, what this is a renewal, exactly what was approved via the previous conditional use permit process.
Thank you.
Other council members, Kurt?
Thanks for that report. I looked at the map and just looked flaky. It didn't come clearly on my machines. Could you explain the parking? I'm having trouble understanding how you put 6 cars, right? Is that really legitimate in a single parking without getting into the street?
Yes, I actually did a couple drive-bys for the property, and in addition to the interior garage spaces, there is sufficient room in the driveway area for 6 additional parking spaces.
And then that would make 8.
6, 7, 8, potentially 10, I believe, as far as total parking spaces, if the interior parking spaces were utilized.
And the total that would be given if the CUP was granted was how many?
I'm sorry,
Parking spaces.
how many parking spaces? You're granting 1 additional, or a total of 6. Exterior and outdoor.
Other council members, Kristen?
Just wondering if you can speak more to the criteria number 3 regarding the preservation of residential areas in juxtaposition with this many cars and this volume of people coming in and out, and how you regard that issue.
Another great question. Again, the property is nearly an acre in size. I was not aware of there was no documentation, if you will, of complaints in relation to parking or noise. Again, throughout this process, you do have a number of letters in your packet that would suggest that maybe there is a problem. However, that was not, for lack of a better way of saying it, it was hearsay. If I had one picture, some degree of documentation, that would have supported the notion of a different way of looking at it. But, based on fact, I went on the best information I had regarding the potential impacts. Now, keep in mind, I will say that if indeed there is a problem, I would imagine that from this point forward, the process will work efficiently. There will be documented, if indeed there is a problem, complaints and verified problems. And if that is indeed the case, there is a portion of your code that allows proper enforcement and potential revocation.
Councilmember Sullivan?
And that was my question. So actually, there were complaints. We go to 5, they're asking for 5 more years. Is that what this says?
That is correct.
And so there were a bunch of complaints enrolled in this coming year. We could just pull.
Yes, the enforcement side of it is in place via your code. It would be investigated and confirmed and obviously documented that would potentially support the enforcement actions necessary.
Councilmember Hagenow?
Thank you. And if this isn't the right group to ask this question for, we can definitely push it to the 2 perspectives of this discussion. But do you happen to know the percent occupancy, right? Because we're talking about a building that can host up to this much, right? Is it every single booking is at this 100% occupancy, or are we talking, maybe there's a husband and wife or a few people that come and use the bar?
Another great question. I asked that very question, and I'm gonna let the applicant respond to that, issue. It is my understanding that the full occupancy of 23 also includes, it was really to adjust for children. But I'll let the applicant address that issue.
When the applicant speaks.
Yes.
Council members, statistics.
I've heard you reference, STR and other official complaint sources. It's my understanding, sitting on this council, that we have called into question the validity of past reporting sources in relation to Keystone specifically. And so I'm wondering how we put so much credence into those sources of information when one of the town's primary goals is to improve the complaint line, make it more accessible, and gain actual real numbers for the first time regarding complaints in Keystone.
The only portion of that I can speak to is yours truly supervised the code enforcement officer when I worked at the county. And while I cannot speak to the issue of the reporting via the software or the company, I can certainly state that I'm not aware of any preference or special or any negligence from the code enforcement officer regarding complaints. If a complaint came in, she responded and initiated the case. I can say that with a high degree of certainty. Now, with this new CEP, it'll be I can promise you, if a complaint is received, it will be it'll be well documented and processed accordingly.
Councilmember Carmet.
Two questions. I'll ask them one at a time. First question is, regardless of what we might speculate the utilization to be as far as how many people are of that potential 23 will rent each time. I just want to clarify, if we approve this, we're saying that they could rent 23 every single time, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Second question is, building on what Councilmember Pisted's concern was, I guess the question is a concern about under reporting of complaints in general. I can't speak to, and obviously you can't speak to specifically whether there was an under reporting of complaints in this case, except in as much as we might hear that in testimony. But when we talk about Councilmember Pisted's question about residential character of the neighborhood, my question to you would be is, in what way is that particular criteria matched against complaint types? Like where does someone call the complaint line and say, well, my residential character of my neighborhood is no longer there? Let me clarify that. It seems to me that we've got the criteria about what question about whether or not that criteria is met. And then you say, well, if there are complaints, what I'm saying is that criteria does not seem to be well addressed by the complaint. So, again, I would need something factual in nature. Parking in the right of way. That is certainly a good indicator that the use has exceeded the parameters of what it was intended. So I would need that to determine whether or not it is impacting the surrounding area. Wouldn't that be a violation of the CUP if they were parking in the right of way? Yes.
Okay, so that to me is, I guess, here's how I clarify my question. Clearly, like if there were violations, that's pretty clear cut, right? And then that goes to Councilmember Sullivan's. Well, if there's a bunch of violations, then there's an opportunity to rescind. We're talking about, character. So I think the question would be like, so, okay, say there's room for, up to 10 cars, 6 outside, and I think you said 4 inside, and the excess amount of traffic that could create without violating the CUP if granted, where does that sit in a complaint space or a enforcement space? If we find that the residential character of the neighborhood is actually not met in retrospect if we grant the CUP.
It's a tough one. Basically, again, impacts have to be documented on fact. And, I don't know that magic threshold. I do know what what the town's regs currently say with regards to limitations and thresholds. Evidently, there was, some degree of analysis with regards to size of structure, size of property, and, what would potentially constitute an impact on the neighborhood. That unfortunately is gonna be not only on me, but potentially on town council to determine that. So with regards to my review, I had to stick to the criteria and fact and document in fact.
Councilmember Hayner.
Thank you. So really this is an issue, right? Because it's a profit generating entity, right? An organization is renting this. But if I were a homeowner in that neighborhood, I could have my cousins, my family come up and occupy the unit, the house, if there was space for them to sleep. And the reason I wouldn't need a permit for that is because it's not for profit. Is that accurate?
In part, I would imagine that you would not charge your relatives for occupancy, but yeah, that is in part the distinction between the short-term rental and having visitors to your house.
Councilmember Thisted.
I want to make sure I understand exactly what we're considering here. We're considering an exception to the existing STR policy. So if we were to deny the exception for an additional X number of people, they would still be allowed to have their STR license, but it would just be at a lower threshold. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And-
They would be entitled to apply for a short-term rental for up to 19 people and 5 parking spaces.
Councilmember. Sure.
Are there any other homes on River Outlook or Elk Crossing that are licensed for STRs?
Another excellent question. I did research the county's data, and based on what I saw from April of this year, there were 7 other licenses issued. Not necessarily CUPs, but 7 other properties within the subdivision that were that had licenses for short-term rentals.
Councilmember Clement.
Were you aware of any of them with CUPs?
I didn't go that far in the research, I apologize. No, but the answer is no, I'm not aware of any other CUPs in that neighborhood.
This is a fairly small neighborhood, I think. What do you know? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Do you know how many homes are on Elk Crossing and in Court?
I believe there are 3 on the court, but I am confident that the applicant or the HOA president who is present would be able to help us with that question.
Any other questions for staff?
That's all you have.
Is there not? All right. Now the applicant will be provided an opportunity to speak, and please step forward up to the podium and state your name and where you live.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Thomas Berry, and I live in Highlands Ranch, but I'm the owner of a small business named Hosting from the Heart, and our headquarters, our office, like you would say, in Dillon. So locally here in Summit County, and I just wanted to say thank you so much, Mayor, council members, city staff for welcoming us tonight. And I wanted to, first of all, just say thank you so much for the hard work that you do. Watching the transition of the incorporation was great, and I want to commend the city staff for their support for us as people living and operating within Keystone and Summit County, as well as with the new portal, the STR portal. The rollout, I know, took a little bit longer, but when we got there, it was really smooth. So thank you to the city staff. I wanted to just kind of start out. I am here as the owner's representative. Zach the Master is the owner of the home. It is a home that he bought as a vacation home for his family, but also rents it out as also welcoming Tammy Ramsey as well, who was a previous property manager of the home. She was actually associated with it for quite a long period of time. So she's a great resource and will be able to speak tonight with any specific kind of questions prior to say 2 years ago when we started managing the property. So just kind of a quick background on me. As I said, small business. My wife, 19, our company is called Hosting from the Heart. We are what we call a boutique portfolio, so we're very small. And we had never intended to be a property management company. The way this started out was my wife and I bought a cabin in Fairplay to use for our family use and enjoyed it. We custom decorated it. I made all the furniture myself, all the artwork, did all the frames and everything, put a lot of love into it. And when my second daughter came along, the doctor said, "Oh my gosh, your house is at 11,000 feet. You shouldn't go there for the last 2 months of her being pregnancy and the first 2 months of her being born." So we thought, oh gosh, what are we gonna do? You know, what if we throw it on Airbnb and just see if we can kind of pay the property taxes or whatever while we're doing this. So that's kind of how it started. We started to welcome people into our homes, into the home, and we would get these letters and these notes. "Thank you so much for welcoming us into your home. We created lifelong memories. We could feel the love of this home." And so we really enjoyed it. So then we bought a second one in Fairplay, and that's kind of how it all started. That's where our company's called Hosting from the Heart, because we truly host from our heart, and we care about our guests, we care immensely about our community, we care a lot about our homeowners. We have an intimate relationship with all of our homeowners. Fast forward to pandemic times, and people started to call us and say, "Oh, you guys have really great reviews, and your home's so cute. Would you help us out? We've got a second home. We're having trouble with these big corporate entities," not to mention any names, you know, I'll know who they are, that just do vast quantities of homes and don't really care about the communities, don't care about the homeowners, don't care about the guests, right? So I said, "Would you help us?" And so we started to say, in the beginning, we said no. And then we finally said, "You know what, maybe we can help these people." So we said yes. So that's ended up how we ended up becoming a property management company. But our goal from the beginning was, how can I deliver that same amount of service to the guests, the homeowners, and the community, like when we have one home, when we have 30, right? So that's our goal. We've capped our portfolio at 35. We're not looking to be one of these big companies with 300 rentals. So that's a little bit of background on Hosting from the Heart. I got introduced to the property through Tammy Ramsey. The property was built 22 years ago, and it's a very unique property. There's nothing else like it. It's remarkable that the builder had the vision to create this 9,000 square foot home with 8 ensuite king bedrooms and lots of fun amenities. So it's a beautiful home, and times are obviously a lot different 22 years ago. We didn't have conditional use permits. We didn't have STR regulations necessarily. It was so in the infancy of vacation rentals. And so at that time, and Tammy can speak to this, kind of the history of the first, 15 years of the property and how it was used. But then it transitioned to a vacation rental. And when the regulations came in and said, well, if you would like to sleep the same amount of people in the home as you have beds, you need to do a conditional use permit. And so, that was applied for in 2019, went through this full-on rigorous process of saying we want to go from 19 to 23 and have the 6 parking spaces. And it was reviewed in all extent, with all the detail, and approved without any issues. Operated for the last 5 years on that, excuse me, on that CUP. Again, 2 years ago, we took over when the home ownership changed to Zach. And what I want to really share with you here today is the key elements here. I can understand the concerns with big home, all the cars, all these people, parties, events. We are so committed to the integrity and maintaining the character of the neighborhood, and not being an event center, not being a hotel, not being something that's going to cause any real harm to any of the residents or anything around. Be a positive impact to the community and the neighborhood. So some of the things that we do to achieve that is, number one, we have very strict no party policy, no weddings, no events. We do not allow those types of things. We do not rent to 23 adults. That's too much. There's no way. This home is built for multi-generational families to come, for grandma and grandpa and their kids and their grandkids to all spend Christmas together, Thanksgiving together, and come to enjoy Keystone in the summer and go biking and hiking, come in the winter and ski and watch their grandchildren ski for the first time. That's what this home is all about. And I want to just share with you the importance of our commitment to that and to the community. So our average, the question you asked earlier, average occupancy, I ran a report for the last 24 months. Our average occupancy was 13. Right? So the average group ranges from anywhere from like 8 to 10 adults, 10 to 16 adults, to 2 to 7 children. So the density is not a bunch of adults, it is families. A lot of times those children are under 3 and infants as well. Some of the things that we do to make sure that our rules are enforced, this is very important, right? Because we take this very seriously, and this is how we have this perfect track record that we spoke about, and we continue to make sure that that happens. We have noise monitors inside the home and outside the home with set thresholds. If it was to go above a set decibel, we get an alert. Time to call the guests. Hey guys, that's not an appropriate level of volume. We need to make sure that you don't receive that. So we are very, very quick, instant alerts to our phones. We take care of those situations immediately. So no noise, quiet hours. We even have the threshold where after quiet hours, so from 10 p.m. until 7 a.m. or 9, actually, I think it's actually 9, we can set that threshold even lower to make sure that there's no noise happening in the evenings. Okay, that same. So we have those. We have Stay Fi router. So when the guests come in, nowadays everybody logs into the Wi-Fi, right? First thing you do when you get into a home. So we have, and it counts the occupancy. We know exactly how many people are in the home at all times, right? So that's one way we can also monitor, and we have alerts set up. If we were to go over our occupancies, we get an alert and we immediately take action. Okay. In addition to that, we have cameras so that we can monitor the parking area. Like you mentioned, it does fit 6 cars. We are very strict with you cannot park on the county streets, on the city town streets. So the cul-de-sac there, which for the record there's 2 homes in the cul-de-sac, 1 and 2. Absolutely no parking in the cul-de-sac, very strictly enforced. Cars have to be in the driveway. No outdoor, parties, events, anything to that nature. So those are the things, some of the steps we take. Now, to go one further, our team is incredible. We're very dedicated to vetting because we want to protect the community. We want to protect our homeowners' asset. So we vet very thoroughly. Every guest that inquires with us, they must be over 28, first of all. They must have a 5-star review on Airbnb or Vrbo. And we listen and we listen to the cues that they're providing us with. Any kind of an inkling that this might not be the group we want, or if it's, hey, can we have a bachelor party? Absolutely, right? Very, very picky with our guests. Families, that's kind of that's the ideal guest that we're looking for. Okay, so we have a very stringent vetting process as well. I don't necessarily need to go into a lot of detail, but the benefits to the community economically. You all know that. You've been through all the STR meetings and such. But again, like I spoke of at the beginning, this is all about welcoming people to this beautiful mixed residential and resort community, right? And I think it's important that we maintain that integrity, and that's, I think a lot of that responsibility lands on property manager's shoulders. It's our job to not let this thing get out of control, to not allow just anybody in and to rent the homes that would distract from that beautiful character of the community. So I just want to share with you and to the community, our commitment to you, to all the residents of the Elk Crossing community, that we are here to make sure this is done right. We want to work with you. Steve and I have direct line of contact. He's got my cell phone. I told him anything out of the ordinary. You just call me immediately, text me, taken care of. So we want to know, we want to do this right. I think that's kind of the bulk of what I wanted to say. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Any questions for the applicant? Councilmember Sullivan?
Three quick ones. What do you advertise on your website for quantity of people?
So the max occupancy is 23.
You put 23 on.
Yes, yeah, I mean, so Airbnb, the maximum you can set on Airbnb is 16. But, you know, we can say in our subject heading or in our description, the max occupancy is 23. People write us, hey, can we have 25 people? Nope, 23. Hey, we want to have our friends over for dinner with us. Nope. We even say, if they're like, well, we want to bring in a chef or something to prepare for us, that has to fit within the 23. So absolutely the hard stop, the hard cap.
And you said there are 2 homes on the cul-de-sac. Is the other one,
There's us and one other.
102 Elk Crossing?
102 is actually just to the east. So that's actually our closest proximity neighbor. Kim and Sean live there. They provided a letter of support, lovely family. And they're the closest, you know, kind of earshot. Never complained, no issues whatsoever with them. The one in the cul-de-sac, her name is Yana. Never had an issue with her. She's lovely. As far as we are concerned, she's very happy.
And then you said, last, noise monitor, use statistics on there when it's gone off?
Do I have statistics? No, I don't have any statistics on it, but I can, if there's an event, I can capture that information. But we definitely haven't had any events, so we're doing good. But yes, I can document it, so that way too, if there was an issue, right? If something happened, I want all the documentation. If a neighbor calls and says, first of all, like, hey, there's something going on, like, I'm gonna be there immediately, number one, to use whatever's going on. If it was called into the police, say, great, let's go over, let's stop, whatever this is. Sometimes there's, in the world, there's bad actors, right, that lie and say things, but that's why we vet really hard to kind of wean those things out, but we haven't had any issues with this home with that. So.
Other questions? Councilmember Parmet?
Quick question was, when you gave your average occupancy, which was
13.
Is that total number of occupants divided by number of stays?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Counting occupancy by Wi-Fi, I think you said?
Yep.
Is that based on number of devices registered to the network?
So the technology is called StayFi, and they've got kind of a smart algorithm where they can identify, like, if my iPad and my phone, they can tell they're both mine.
Okay.
I don't know how, but they can essentially. So yeah, it's users. So it'll say that I can log in at any time. You can see how many people are in. I can see how much data they're using, everything. It'll say their name, their phone number. I've got all their information right there.
And presumably that wouldn't count people who don't have Wi-Fi devices.
Correct. Children, yes. Children have devices.
Well, I mean, depending on how young they are.
Yeah.
Screens at quite a young age, but presumably at some point. And how many bedrooms is the place?
It has 9 bedrooms.
Okay. And are any of those bedrooms set up specifically with a bunch of folks in one room, like for kids?
The children's room, yeah. So it's a bunch of twin beds, colorful games, Jenga, all that stuff. That's like the kids' room. they just love it. It's like the biggest slumber party, right? Kids just right to bed. If you read our reviews, people just write, they say, oh my goodness, I just can't believe how special this was. You know, be here with our whole family under one roof. That's the situation. And we're not saying that we would want these all over. This is one very special home. We're not asking for any more than what we've already had. People come with larger groups, and oftentimes if you have a larger group, you have to stay in a hotel. You get 8 hotel rooms. You all have to meet down at the lobby for a drink, and then you gotta go for dinner, and then where are we gonna go for breakfast? To be able to be together and make pancakes, grandma, and have that moment. And the people that want to go skiing and go exploring can do it. The ones that don't can relax and take in the beauty of Keystone, right from the patio. So that's where we feel like this is a really unique piece of the town of Keystone. Has been for 22 years. And all we're asking to do is to continue that and for you to give us the opportunity to prove to you that we can do it the right way.
Another question, Kevin? Councilmember Hagenauer.
Thank you, Mayor. Have you ever engaged with the HOA to ensure, quote, the preservation of the residential character of the neighborhood?
Yes, I go to the HO meetings. Steve is the president. He's going to speak tonight, obviously. Sit in, listen to anything, make sure there's no complaints, concerns, anybody, meet everybody. Hey, here's my card. If you ever need anything, or if you have any issues, give me a call. 100%. Steve and I go for coffee next week. It's all about how do we work together to do this the right way. And we take this very seriously. So yeah, any issues with the HOA neighbors, we're here to listen and to see what we can do to make sure that their concerns are met.
Thank you. What does your staff look like besides yourself, for responding to the alerts you're talking about and managing the property, outside of when you might be available to come up from hiring programs or wherever you might be at the time?
Absolutely, great question. So my head of maintenance lives 5 minutes away from the home. So he's, first call, boom, he's there. So we've got that. I've got, we have, so again, we're a 32 property portfolio, 9 of them are in Fairplay, the rest of them are in Summit County, so we have 2 in the Front Range. So we're very small, but we have a great little team, all local residents here that work really hard, housekeepers, maintenance people, the people that clean the spa, the people that shovel the driveways, do the landscaping. We employ all locals. So, we're giving jobs, and these people really enjoy this opportunity to work in this home.
Councilmember Kerr.
What would be the effect if you were limited to 19 or 20 guests and 5 cars in addition to what goes in the garage?
Yeah, it would really change things. This home being what it is, and its layout was designed for this ultimately. And we've got people that come back year after year to experience this, to bring the kids back to ski and watch road skiing in Keystone. So we would be inhibited from doing that. They'd have to now go get a hotel. And here's the thing that's important too, is that you can't just say, oh, hey, go rent 2 homes on this street. No, because that means everybody from one home is going to go congregate at the other one. We don't allow that. So that's the important thing. If they say, hey, we've got 25 story, you got to go to a hotel or whatever. This is the one opportunity in Keystone to have that kind of family dynamic. So it's very important to us to continue with what we can do.
So let me ask the question a different way. How many times in the last year did you rent for more than 20 people?
In the last 24 months, I'd have to bring up that. I don't know how many times we hit 23.
How many times? Over 20. Yes.
I would be guessing.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry. I can definitely get that information for you. Absolutely.
Councilmember Hagenauer.
So I know you were talking about 9 bedrooms, and one of the bedrooms has a bunch of twin beds for the kids, which sounds cool. How many beds in particular? So there's 8 kings, and then there's
7 twins.
7 twins.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did 23 become the number, not 30, 16?
That was the CUP from back in 2019. To be
Okay.
honest, I don't know the answer to that question, why that was the number, but Tammy can probably speak to that after.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Thiston.
So you mentioned that you have a no party policy and no events, and I'm wondering what qualifies as an event. Is a bachelor party or a bachelorette party or family reunions where they're having food catered in and extra,
Family reunions, we think are great, you know, obviously, again, the maximum amount of people can't have to be the maximum amount of people. You can't bring in other additional people. So, but yeah, no bachelor parties, no wedding, no receptions. People ask us all the time, trust me. Because it would just sound, you can't do that in Summit County, I'm sorry. You have to find a venue. We'd be happy to, if you all want to, rent this house to sleep in, you know, for your mom, the dad, the wedding party, which we definitely do a lot of. It's like, hey, we're getting married at Sapphire Point, our reception is at so-and-so place, but the family's gonna stay in this home. And not only that, imagine that you get married here at this home, you're always gonna wanna have, you have that special part in your heart from Keystone, right, come back throughout your life. So that is something that we do. But yeah, absolutely no big parties. No thanks, don't even do that. That's across our whole portfolio. We really are a family-centric business. We want good people in our homes. We don't deal with that kind of stuff at all.
Other questions? Well, I have a couple. Some of them have already been answered, but how many nights a year is a home on an annual, in that 2 years of data, how many nights a year is a home rented?
So we're operates at around, on average, 60% occupancy.
Over a full year?
Over a fairly full year, so 6 out of 10 nights for people.
And also, as I read in one of the letters that was submitted, this home went through the HOA's architecture committee back in 2002. Do you happen to know whether it was known at that time the home was going to be used as an executive retreat?
Yes,
I don't, Tammy would know.
yes, it was in. So it went through an extensive review,
Thank you.
with the design committee and the HOA board.
You could just state your
Oh, sure.
name and restate the
Sorry.
answer.
Tammy Ramsey, the previous property manager at 31 River Overlook Court. And the original owners were townhome owners at the ski tip. And the resort was their favorite place with their family. They had 4 kids and they fell in love with that lot where the home is at. And so they actually were healthcare marketing professionals and they sold their business. And when they were done doing that, they felt like their work wasn't complete because people checked into the hospital and it's not really what they got, what was promised in the ad. And so they built this home to bring people to immerse them in an experience that felt personalized, that then they could take back and apply to their own healthcare organizations. And so it was approved as a residence with this corporate consulting as part of it. And so that's where the executive piece comes in, that the people came to stay there.
So when this property was originally built, it was built with the full knowledge of the homeowners association that it was going to be used for short-term rentals of
Not short-term rentals. It did not become so in 2002 is when the original owner built it.
right?
In 2009, and they raised their 4 kids there. So I actually started there as their personal assistant, drove their kids to school, and helped them when they had people come in from out of town to stay in the home. And so they never brought cars. They came up in a limousine or town cars so that it wasn't impacting the nature of the neighborhood. And in 2008 and 9, they started to stay at their California home. And so at that point, we applied for a short-term rental permit for 19. And then when we changed the room that has the twin beds in it, that's when we applied for the conditional use permit.
Right.
So, and we've actually had many of the homeowners in this particular association. I have managed 5 homes during my time from 2002 till now. I still manage 1 of those homes, and several of the homeowners have actually rented the home because their homes don't accommodate the number of people for their family reunions. And there has been a phone call made to the home that I manage, asking for them to get on board to oppose this conditional use permit.
Can you repeat that?
There has been a phone call made to the property that I manage, to the owner, to get on board to oppose this conditional use permit. So it's being solicited.
Right. And any other, Councilmember Thisted?
It seems, I'm trying to reconcile what I was reading in the governing documents versus what you guys are saying it was approved for. Is there any documentation that it was approved as a business venture when it was built versus just a primary residence?
Gosh, I would have to, so Gary and Lee Adamson are the original owners, and they did it in 2002, and I started working with them in 2003. And so we would have to go back and see, I wouldn't have any record.
Because it seems to be in direct conflict with what the HOA documents state.
And so, I mean, I don't know how we go back on that.
Good evening. My name is Zach Lee Master. I'm the homeowner, so welcome any questions from all of you, and also thank you for your time. I understand this is a sensitive topic, right? This is a new thing that we're trying to really discuss with short-term rentals, how we manage that. Certainly no one wants their city turning into this, just a bunch of rentals all over the place, right? This is a very unique home. It's not built like a residential property. It just isn't. It's 9,000 square foot. The intention was to operate not as well, maybe originally as a business, but it's just a really unique home. I think the interesting thing from a lot of our guests that come back year after year is that they realize there's no really other accommodations that they can put their family of their size in Keystone without separating them. So I do truly believe that this house serves a unique purpose in this area. It's in an isolated cul-de-sac. There's many undeveloped lots. So maybe this discussion, with density is more relevant in the future. Possibly, but this home serves a very unique purpose in Keystone as a whole. I don't know if I stated, I'm in Erie, so I'm not local here, but I'm a Colorado resident. We come up to this home often. I have two young children, a 1 and a 3-year-old. We purchased this home with the intention of renting it out. It had an approved CUP at that point. I think it's important to acknowledge that we're not requesting something new to be done with this home. This is an extension of how this home has operated for the past 5 years. Since the CUP has been necessary, we've always, since I've owned it for about 2 years, and it's interesting that it's become quite a discussion point tonight, whereas 2 years ago, the CUP was just extended and approved. And we want to be conscious of the neighbors in that neighborhood, of everyone, and acknowledging, not making this into an area that's affecting, guests that are with additional cars or, making it an area where it's impacting the residential aspect. That's really important to me. I'm, growing my young family in a residential neighborhood. This home, I think, it's just not, like I said, it's not been meant to be a residential property. It was intended for other purposes than that. It serves a different purpose in that. We bought the property with the intention of operating that way. And quite frankly, a 9,000 square foot house that's built 20 years ago requires an extensive amount of maintenance to upkeep. And the only way we're able to do that is through the revenue of allowing short-term rentals in this place. So really, I think, and I could go through a lot tonight, but we've discussed a lot already. What we're really asking for you is just to continue the conditional use permit. We've already acknowledged that if this becomes an issue, which it historically has not been, if it becomes an issue, you also have the power to revoke it at any point in time. You have our commitment to maintain the integrity of the neighborhood, to contribute, as we always have, to the local economy, and offer. Keystone is a destination location, right? People are seeking out to come here and visit, and that boosts the local economy. And if you look at the all 5-star reviews that we have, which are only 5-star reviews and hundreds of them, back when Tammy managed this and when Thomas's team does an excellent job managing this, they talk about coming back to this house year after year. So it really is important. I think it's a really iconic, it's an iconic house. It's not a random house. It just isn't. And so we're asking for the privilege to continue that conditional use permit. We're here to listen to feedback. But it's, we're asking for, the opportunity to prove to you as you're the new governing board for the CUP that this is actually an important aspect to the community and to the economy. And it can be done in a reasonable manner under guidelines, right? And we continue to speak with the neighbors and we continue to speak with the HOA. The HOA approved short-term rentals. And I think there's some discussion around like, what happens if you don't have the CUP? Yes, you can still operate it as a short-term rental. The reality is, from an economic and marketing standpoint, we need that because there are families with very large groups of children that simply don't have another option for occupancy. And we really serve a really unique niche and purpose for people coming to the community. So with that, guys, thank you for hearing all the discussion on this. I don't want to drag this out too long. I'm also happy to answer any questions you have.
Any other questions from council? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now we'll open the floor for public comments. And if you would again, please line up and line up at the podium and discuss whether the application should be approved or denied. When it's your turn to speak, please state your name, where you live, your interest in the approval or denial of the application, and please limit your comment to no more than 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Steve Martin, 242 Elk Crossing Lane. I'm a 3-year full-time resident in Elk Crossing, and I am the current HOA president. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the HOA board who does not support the approval of this CUP, and we hope that the town council does not support the approval of this as well. You have heard how great the management companies are and the owner is, but they are here to exist to make a business and rental income off of this property. Please note that these management company people are not owners, homeowners of Elk Crossing. In 1989, Keystone Resorts Management was behind the development of our community. We are a community of single-family homes. We have 27 lots with 24 homes built. We have approximately 7 full-time residents. We have 7 STR homes, with the majority of these being full-time STRs. We were developed as single-family homes and not developed as a high-density community of condos or townhomes. Our homes have view sites of the Keystone River Golf Course or the Snake River. We are minutes from the golf course, minutes from the ski resort, 5-minute walk to the Keystone Stables and Keystone Science School, and we have an HOA entrance path to the Summit County Rec Path, which runs behind our houses. We have a lot to offer, and we have become very desirable for rental property purposes. If you take those 7 STRs, you have guests allowed for 12, 19, 23, 14, 14, 12, and 12 people. This is 106 guests allowed for just these 7 STRs. Although we may not have been developed as a high-density community, STRs are now creating a high-density environment within our community. In the application process, repeatedly the phrase is used, the proposed operation of the STR will ensure preservation of the residential character of the neighborhood where it's located. The character of our neighborhood was never meant to have STRs that currently allow 107 guests in just 7 homes. From our declarations, you were provided with our restrictions of use. It talks about residents and family and friends using it. And since it was dated from 1989, has the lovely wording of no boarding houses shall be allowed. Boarding houses definition is the rental of room or rooms within a house. And our HOA decide to declare that STRs are not allowed? Sure, we could take that stance. Do we know what the 7 STR people are probably going to do? Sure, we have an idea. especially, so we have started conversations with our homeowners on amending our declarations for a clear and concise STR language. But as you know, this is a long and costly process. STR properties, especially full-time STRs, typically do not have people who volunteer to serve on the HOA board. These homes do not have primary home residents who can run for mayor or town council, and do not have registered voters who can vote in town elections. STRs, especially full-time STRs, are here to exist to make money by renting the property out as much as possible and putting as many people as possible into the house. These are not your typical homeowners looking to help pay their mortgage by doing some part-time rentals. Do not allow single-family neighborhoods in Keystone to become high-density communities. We have already heard that the average guest occupancy is 13, so we do not see why 19 would not be acceptable and why they need to have 23. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for this? Yes, Councilman Member Davis?
It was stated a few minutes ago that the HOA had approved this as a business.
No, like I say, we are in the process of amending our 1989 documents, and there was discussion and surveys done regarding STRs. So we are looking to hopefully take the process of amending our declarations for clear and concise STR language. But no, the HOA has not given approval. It may have been allowed, it may have not been enforced, but no, the HOA has not given approval for STRs.
Did the HOA approve the property, as was stated, the architectural committee of the HOA did approve the property for corporate retreats?
I don't not have that information. So.
All right, any other questions? Councilmember Parmet.
Quick question is what, and I'm not the stats guy, so you may not have the exact answer, but the square footage living area, this house has been listed at 9,000, and it's under 9,000. What's the average square footage of the other 22 homes in your neighborhood?
You're probably talking more in the 4,000 to 5,000 square footage range. And as per your packet, if you want to base it on one person per 200 square feet of living space, your packet says 44 people would be potentially allowed in that property.
Yes, and that is a potential, but that would also require a CUP. That's not what's under discussion tonight, but all right, I was just trying to reconcile with the average size in the neighborhood. It sounds like this is a couple of standard deviations above the average size, which explains why perhaps there's a difference in occupancy versus the other STRs that you listed. Would you say that's accurate?
The house is typically about 2 times the size of the other homes within Elk Crossing, yes.
And how many occupied lots directly border that house?
You have the 31 Overlook Court. You have 3 lots that have been vacated into 1 lot by the Paulsons, who you received a letter from. And then you have Yana, who lives, is the 3rd house. So there's going to be the potential for 3 houses on that court.
But currently there's 2. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councilmember Page, no.
Thank you. Just so I'm understanding the perspective of the HOA and the breakdown of the neighborhood. So we have 7 residents that live full-time, or 7 residential houses that are full-time in the neighborhood with a varying degree of occupants throughout the year. One of the letters that we had in opposition talked about how their friends or family might come up and use the house for certain weeks out of the year. So just so I'm understanding correctly, right? There's other residences in the neighborhood that are not STRs that have very few people living there full-time with the potential to have guests coming into town that might not own a unit, but they're not STRs, they're not needing the licensing that we're talking about tonight.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I have one question, and it's based on the comments that you made. If this were not a issue of CUP approval and occupancy, but it was for approval of an STR license for the 19 residents and 4 and 5 parking spots, would the HOA be opposing that as well?
No.
All right. Any other questions? Right, thank you very much. Next person. Anyone else?
We have online person.
One online? All right. And again, if you're online, please state your name, and where you live and your interest in the property or in this matter.
Peter, you can unmute yourself.
And could you
Thank you.
show your picture, please, Peter?
This is Peter Madlin. I'm resident in the ranch area of Keystone.
Could you please
I
show
just
your
had a
picture?
couple of small comments with regards to the process and some of the data. I wanted to understand it a little bit better. One of the comments that I saw starting up was that the county had approved the short-term license for parking of 9. And if I'm not mistaken, this is actually requesting parking for 10 vehicles. Is that accurate?
No, it is not. The county approved 6. This is a application for 6. Outdoor.
There was a note about 6 outdoor parking, and there are 4 available indoor parking, which I count as 10, so I'm a little confused.
I don't think there's a regulation about indoor parking.
Could you comment on that?
That is correct. The CUP only regulates outdoor parking.
Correct.
The other note is some of the data that's required, that has come out of the county's short-term rental group is a bit, in my mind, suspect or suspicious, because I personally had submitted over a year a number of requests to contact the short-term rental people about keeping their door closed so the cooler that's out there is not an enticement to the bear, and other considerations. And I formally submitted each of those, yet I do remember a councilman saying that there was a total of only 17 submitted complaints at the short-term rental group that supports the county. I personally have done at least half of that myself, nothing terribly important, but the sheer number didn't count right. And the point being is that perhaps those numbers are not terribly reflective of accurate, and I would encourage the council to think about the fact that we will have probably better statistics coming from our new short-term rental mechanisms. And we could potentially use a shorter CUP duration to take a look at what data we might get from that improved accurate characteristics and collection of data. That way it's a win-win. They get a chance to use this new capability, but we get better data to take a look at it, and the CUP could be reviewed. That's all I have. Thank you for all the information, both from the public as well as the commission.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? With no other comments, the public hearing is now closed and the council will now deliberate on the application. Regarding criteria 1 and 2. And I'll ask us to refer to the criteria was on page 4 of the staff sheet. Regarding criteria 1 and 2, the staff and staff report presented evidence that the criteria have been met. Was there evidence presented that contradicted this information? Yeah, Councilmember Thurston.
I apologize, my computer just betrayed me 1 second. Somebody else was listening. I do want to speak, but I need to pull my back up. Okay, I think I found it.
And again, we're addressing criteria 1 and 2.
Yes. So we're talking about, I'm going to specifically address public health and safety. I guess my question mark remains that this is admittedly a commercial enterprise without a commercial infrastructure. So I would question with the number of people and the lack of on-site security and 24-hour concierge, whether or not there is in fact a public health and safety concern and ability to address security issues and other things that come up immediately. I mean, this goes beyond the standard STR where you make a complaint on the hotline and require response. There's a larger volume of people that I think warrant a higher threshold for public health and safety.
Councilmember Torment.
On-site security, I'm struggling to think of other examples in our community, such as hotels that have their own security force.
Exactly, a hotel.
Well, I'm using that as an example. I'm saying if the expectation, if that is so, then why is it not required of those larger properties? It's hard to, if you wish to make the stipulation that this is in that classification and should therefore have these security functions, it's not required of other commercial properties that are vastly larger. Thus, I'm trying to find the fairness in it.
I would identify Keystone Emergency Services as the one that services the biggest properties with other large volumes of people.
Right, there's no specific requirement for a specific hotel, like Church's Lodge, the Hyatt, they don't have security forces. A distributed security force run by Vail Resorts that has a wide purview that's not specifically properties that their subsidiary manages, it doesn't quite transfer over to something that's smaller than hotels that don't require security.
Councilmember Higginbotham.
Thank you. I would agree with Councilmember Parment's assessment. While the standard and the goal for a lot of hospitality operations, especially in county, is to have 24-hour staff, not necessarily security designated staff, but 24-hour staff. The reality is that a lot of properties do not have that, and there is no, to my understanding, and maybe our town attorney can chime in, there's no legal requirement for a hotel or other accommodations of similar nature to have 24-hour staff. That is definitely a service that I think, as a guest myself at other properties, values the 24-hour on-site concierge or property management of some kind. But I don't know of any legal requirement for that, and I don't think that should be held to this as well, because there's tons of properties in county and in town even that don't have 24-hour staff.
Any other comments on criteria 1 and 2? As I look at criteria 1 and 2, the town staff has done has surveyed Summit Fire and EMS. They've surveyed the water district. They've surveyed the sewer district, and in my opinion, it meets the criteria. Both criteria 1 and 2. Regarding criteria 3, that the proposed operation of the STR will ensure preservation of the residential character of the neighborhood where it is located, and there is not expected to be significant adverse impacts to the adjacent neighborhood. The staff and applicant indicated that the request for 4 additional occupants and 1 parking space is not significant Both staff and the applicant provided information that this conditional use permit has been in place for 5 years and that there were no documented complaints regarding the STR. And how do you view the public comment? Based on the facts that have occurred. Councilmember Purvett.
I tend to be very sympathetic to the idea that there's probable underreporting. I do find it quite remarkable that if you do go to the source of the comments submitted to council, their closest and most direct neighbor is in support and states that they've never had any complaints. So I would find it, if our conjecture is that there might be underreporting, I guess I find it remarkable that the person who would be most likely to have the complaint has explicitly come to us and said, we have no complaints. And so I struggle to rest on evidence that is not in hand. And I did think that the commentary from the gentleman online that, and I guess this is a question to anyone who knows the answer, is there an option for shorter CUP in 5 years?
For the record, Lindsay Hirsch, Community Development Director. Yes, you could condition a lesser amount of time. The 5 is the ceiling, if you will.
Because that would allow a data resolution here, if we think there's underreporting. Without us acting precipitously on evidence not in hand.
Councilmember Sullivan.
I do think that, the criteria number 3 is the one that's got the most discretion. This is really, it's your definition of character of the neighborhood, so it's difficult to understand both sides of this argument. At the same time, I did like the comment that Peter, and your comment on the Peter made, on that maybe we could put a shorter time. The other side of that is that keep it 5, but if there are a bunch of complaints, we can just bring it back up and we can pull it. So I thought that there was a lot of, that's just the other side of the argument, but you get to the same thing.
Town attorney.
I think it's helpful, might be helpful. I don't know if everybody understands this. But the conditional use permit, for the short-term rental to have it for 23 occupants and 6 parking spaces also requires a short-term rental license. And a short-term rental license is a 1-year license, that can be not renewed if there are complaints or problems. And a short-term rental license can also be revoked if there are complaints and violations. So if the short-term rental license is revoked or not renewed, then you have no CUP.
Councilmember Bigelow.
Thank you. I forget it. I think Councilmember Sullivan mentioned that, 0.3, if you will, the criteria has the most ambiguity to it. And I would agree with that, but I think that this is also, in my opinion, based on the evidence presented, the one that really would have the ability to allow us to decide on this property. And I struggle, right? You know, as a person who struggles to find housing myself, right? Every what seems like 6 months, I want there to be more availability of longer term units in county. But to be honest, what I'm seeing is a community of folks that live there and might have higher occupancy during holiday times, but that's because of your family, right? Like, so let's say my grandmother, Councilmember Davis over here, is inviting us to the Keystone. And we're gonna stay at her house, right? There's still an influx of people into that neighborhood, but the only reason why it's not a concern is because it's not for profit. And we are, at the end of the day, a resort community, right, that has visitors that don't own houses here, and the neighborhood does seem to not be totally adversely affected by it, right? Like it's similar to the other houses and how they are managed, right? Having spikes and influx of people throughout the season. And if the community, the HOA does want to manage that internally, they're more than welcome to, but I don't think we as a council should be the ones that have to enforce that. They should be the ones that have to enforce their own desires to have their homeowners area a certain way. And that's where I'm kind of coming from, and that's for the third point in particular, which again, I think is the most divisive one. I would say that I tend to agree that they have presented enough evidence that it would not adversely affect the character of the neighborhood.
Councilmember Thiston.
I think, something that I have to lean into is something that the applicant said verbatim, is this was not meant to be a residential property. And I have a hard time figuring out how that statement reconciles with the criteria of preservation of a residential neighborhood, coupled with the fact that it's also in direct conflict with the existing HOA governing documents. That in itself, from my perspective, proves that it does not meet the preservation of a residential neighborhood. Additionally, I would question, and I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place to say it, but we heard comments tonight during the public comment session, how this impacts our precedent for future zoning and potential modifications for STR policies, given that we're in the midst of a master planning process. I think it's irresponsible to grant a 5-year exception.
Councilmember, you haven't spoken. Councilmember Herb.
I'm going to ask a question of the attorney. Jumping off of what Councilmember Thiston just said, as we go into this comprehensive planning, we may come up with ideas, new ways of doing business, new cutoffs. I mean, we inherited this code from the county. We inherited the CUP. If we were to decide to put in new restrictions of any sort in, let's say, in 2 years, how would that affect this?
Well, you can change the land use code, you can change the CUP permitting requirements. You can amend your short-term regulations. But, you know, the question of how it impacts somebody who has an existing license and how it would impact somebody who has an existing CUP. I mean, that's something that is a legal issue that we need to consider. And it generally, those changes don't go into effect until after the end of the permit or the end of the license. So if you have a 1-year license, then the changes would go into effect for the new year for that licensee.
But not necessarily at the end of the CUP limitation.
It would go into effect at the end of the 5 years.
But if that license was not renewed, then that CUP no longer exists.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And what I'm hearing is, I'm looking at all the evidence and I see mixed signals. I don't know these folks so as to weigh one or the other. But it does seem like there are some opportunities with more data and more public input to readdress this, either through HOA processes or through land use codes or through license response to any negative data that comes out. Would that sound correct?
Yes, I mean, you can always change your regulations. That is one thing that has we've discussed in the past, if that's something that may be discussed by the town council as changing or looking at STR regulations. You can do that.
Okay. I'm stuck on this term, conditional use, and it seems like if conditions change, any of those ones we've talked about, the HOA rules, our decisions on land use or license. I know it's not the way, I know that's not what this means, but in fact, when conditions change, you can relook the situation. I know it's not the same as the term conditional use, I understand.
Right, but the conditional use permit is tied to the STR license. So the STR license is no longer, if they don't have an STR license, then they would not have a conditional use.
Right.
Changing the code of a conditional use permit on a permit you've already granted doesn't necessarily revoke that permit.
Okay. Thank you.
Comments? Councilmember Parmet.
I think that there's a couple items that I think about on three, because again, going back to your comment, that this has the most room for interpretation. And I think when we look at our regulations as they're written, some of them like STR adopted directly from the county, which I know was Councilmember Disted's concern around. Well, we've got to get something in place, but we need something that fits us. And, you know, the comment from one person who spoke at the podium tonight, the HOA president, that if you went by square footage, there would be an enormous number, 44 potentially available. I think most of the folks here wouldn't find that reasonable. And I think that's why this COP process exists, because anything above 19 suggests that you must be running into a situation where this home is somewhat unusual and needs individual consideration. And that's what I think about when I reflect on Councilmember Disted's very real question about what are we setting for precedents. And here's what I think. I think this home is one unique outlier. We aren't talking about a neighborhood that's got a bunch of 2,400 square foot homes or a bunch of 800 square foot cabins and one 2,400 square foot home. We're talking about a 9,000 square foot home with 9 bedrooms. And this is rather unique in our community. And I think the way that I interpret the owner's representative, that it's not residential in nature, I think what they're implying is that it's not a traditional one family is going to live there by themselves with their 2.3 children in 9 bedrooms. That's the type of, versus must it be a commercial venture? Maybe. But I don't think that we're necessarily, as we carefully consider as a council and rule in this, hamstringing ourselves with a precedent that will be applicable across all home sizes in all neighborhoods with all future decisions. I think that we can look at this specific incident and make our best judgments based on its unique character. And with that in mind, when I look at impact upon residential character, and I note that it has very few neighbors and it is on a cul-de-sac, thinking about a roughly 10% difference in occupancy. Say again? 19 to 23.
It's actually.
20%. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, here I am saying, oh, I like stats and I'm getting my math wrong. The hour's running late. But I think that we're looking like a 20% difference in occupancy and parking spaces. I guess I have a bit of a struggle to look at this one outlier and say this 20% change is going to ruin the residential character of this one action. And so I'm inclined to go with they have defended that it doesn't change the residential character, while at the same time agreeing with Councilmember Kistet that 5 years would be far too much to approve in an entirely new process for a new town where we might be changing things coming up.
Other comments? As I've listened to the testimony, this house was built in 2002, clearly an outlier in the size for the entire community. Yet it was approved by the architectural committee and the HOA of knowing that this was going to be used for outside guests coming in for corporate retreats. I'm frankly impressed with the applicant's transparent, oversight of this property. It's far more than anything that's required in any of our STR regulations. They have sound monitoring capabilities. They by their testimony, strictly limit the amount of participation in the community. As far as traffic volume and potential impact to the community, the home was approved 9 bedrooms and four indoor garage spaces, and at least six outdoor parking spaces. So with that in mind, it appears that the original builders of this property and the HOA had some sort of agreement in that area. I also recognize that, and while I'm sympathetic to the HOA, I recognize that the covenants that were presented to us are HOA covenants. The town has no authority to enforce those covenants. If those covenants aren't being, it's up to the HOA to enforce the covenants. And if they believe that this is violating that portion of their covenants, then they should initiate enforcement action on their part, not look to the council to do their job for them. Based on that, the proximity of other houses in the area, I believe that they've met the criteria for residential, the residential criteria, specified criteria 3. Other comments? All right, regarding criteria 4, that there is adequate separation and buffering of the STR use from adjacent residences and public rights of way to mitigate potential impacts on the surrounding neighborhood, including traffic, additional parking, noise. The applicant and staff presented evidence that there is adequate buffering of the STR use from adjacent residences and public rights of way to mitigate potential impacts on the neighborhood. We had some differing views from the public testimony. What are your council's thoughts on this criteria? Does any member of the council believe this criteria has not been met? Councilmember Thiston.
I have one comment. I already know where this vote's going to go because we discussed it during the work session. So I don't think there's anything going on the record, but I don't know.
Well, we did not discuss this in the work session. This has not been discussed by council at all. That would have been a violation of law.
It was prior to becoming whatever this quasi judicial thing is when it was originally presented and we had to decide to make it a quasi judicial matter.
We stopped all discussion of whether it was or was not when that happened. Town attorney, did we violate anything in that earlier discussion?
No, it was pulled from the consent agenda and the motion was to appeal it, to conduct an appeal process. So there was no discussion on the application during that time.
If its memory served, you moved to split it from the consent agenda, and I seconded the motion to split it. And then we moved to have a hearing.
All right. So again, regarding criteria 4, does any member of the council believe this criteria has not been met? Moving on then to criteria 5, that there is not a history of STR complaints on the property. If an STR was already in existence on the property was adequately addressed. The property has adequately addressed the conditions that led to the complaints to the satisfaction of the review authority. The applicant and staff presented evidence that there has been no prior complaint regarding the operation of the use of the property. No evidence of complaints has been submitted. That there may be complaints in the future is not enough to deny the conditional use permit. Does this, and that was presented by the staff, any member of the council believe that this criteria has not been met? Councilmember Thiston.
I think in previous conversations, it's been established that we have a low level of confidence in our prior STR reporting system. And that's been one of the focuses of this council moving forward, is to make it a reputable, reliable means of report. So I don't feel like there's been evidence that supports that there haven't been complaints. I also would reference the fact that there seems to be an encouragement of a direct line of communication between the property manager and the HOA, and we're completely disregarding the HOA's position on complaints or a history of not being happy with this.
Any other thoughts? I happen to agree with Councilmember Thisted that the prior complaint system perhaps has been underreporting, which is why we've made changes. However, I still have to go back to evidence. And as I look at the evidence, what we have is some, the only evidence that's been presented that there's been violations is the last letter that we received, talking about some noise, particularly in the summer out on the decks. That was never able to be investigated because it was never reported or never received by the reporting agency. So based on evidence, I would love to have seen some actual reports that were investigated. Comments? Councilmember Permit.
I guess I'll restate my confusion. The letter we received today is 2 properties over, stating that there was some noise for clarity. Sandwiched in between the property in question and the complainant property is the property that wrote a letter of support. But again, I think because of our lack of confidence in the previous complaint system, balancing against the fact that we can't act on complaints not in hand is the reason to go for a shorter approval.
Other comments? We're now on to criteria 6. Property is in compliance with all other applicable laws, rules, and regulations, including but not limited to standards concerning driveways and parking areas as found in chapters 3 and 5 of this code. The staff presented evidence that the property is in compliance with the Town of Keystone Land Use Code. Does any member of the council believe that this criterion has not been met, and why?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'll just echo that I've identified some of the concerns we have about our existing rules and laws, but just because I think that they need to be changed to the way we have them now, and I've got to follow what we've got.
Any other comments? At this stage, I guess I would ask, since it sounds like there is some thought by some of the members of the council to that potentially, if it were to be approved, it should be approved for a shorter period. Can the town attorney comment on how that might, if that was desired, how that might be put into action?
Well, I guess first you need to decide on what period of time you'd want to issue the conditional use permit for. And then you would do a motion to approve the resolution with a revision to limit the conditional use permit to X number of years, or whatever you decide, what that time period is.
So is there a desire by members of the council to, if this were to be approved, limit the number of the amount of time that the conditional use permit would be approved for? Councilmember Sullivan.
I would say there would be my thinking, because I believe we're protected enough with the complaint system that we're going on. And if we get those complaints, STR's licenses are for a year. And we pull this, if they fail miserably, they get a lot of complaints, this can be pulled in a year. I'd rather them have that continuity of the 5 years to invest in this business, because it is a business. So I would actually, I understand that desire, but I feel like we already have it. We have that protection.
Then can I have a motion?
I would move to approve the conditional use. What is the right language?
It's the resolution 2024-69 approving the conditional use permit at 31 River Outlet Court.
What she said.
You can say so, but
So,
So, is there a second? Councilmember Kerr,
Second that.
it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Permit,
Motion to modify the motion under approval to a 2-year duration of approval.
Councilmember Thespin.
Second.
All right, the motion to modify that approval subject to a 2-year, to have the CUP, apply for 2 years. Is there any discussion on that? Councilmember Parmet,
I think we've already or I've certainly said enough about why I made that motion. I'll just add that whatever action we take here, it sounds like the HOA is going to make our decisions moot anyway.
I'm not sure they will because it requires a 2/3 vote of the association. And in which case the association president indicated that's an extremely hard thing to get. And, with only 7 full-time residents, 7 STR owners. The rest of them are part-time residents. The part-time residents would recognize that there would be a potential significant impact on property values if that were to be enforced. And that's one of the considerations. I've gone through this and implemented just such a change in an STR and a association. I think I would seriously doubt within 2 years, the HOA, as I see the HOA president nodding, will be able to achieve such a consensus within their HOA. I don't know if that changes your thought, but
No, but I appreciate your clarification of those likelihoods and processes.
any other comments? Yeah, my thought on that motion is very similar to Councilmember Sullivan's. I believe that we have very sufficient means and very sufficient intent in the town to strictly enforce the STR rules. And so consequently, I don't believe there's a need to approve the CUP for less than 5 years for that reason, that if the property owner and the property manager do not properly manage this property, I suspect that the town will be on that very, very quickly, and in particular with visibility of this particular unit, very, very hard. And so I don't support it, but any other comments or questions? All right, can I, in that case, without objection, I'll call for a vote on the amendment. This is a vote on the amendment to limit the duration of the CUP for 2 years. All those in favor of limiting the duration of the CUP for 2 years, please raise your hands. All those opposed? 1, 2, 4 opposed, 2 in favor, and I didn't see Valerie's hand go up for either. To vote for approval? 5-2, 4-3, the motion is denied. Not approved. Now, going back to the main motion to approve the CUP, with you to approve the resolution of what she said. Have to go back to the resolution. 2024, 69. I grabbed the right.
Yeah,
package.
correct, 69.
Of a resolution of the town council of the town of Keystone, Colorado, approving a conditional use permit of a short-term rental STR located at 31 River Overlook Court. Again, all those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? The motion passes by, we have to have by name on this one? We have to have roll call?
No.
The motion passes by a vote of 5-2. The last item on the agenda is the budget. It is again a public hearing, and I would, at this point, by the charter, I'm required to ask the council. I'm required to ask the council if you would like to extend the council meeting to complete this item. The problem is if we don't complete this item tonight, then we will be way behind the power curve to getting the budget approved by the statutory time.
And if I may comment, it appears that there's not going to be a whole lot of public comment.
Thank you. So with that, again, I would move as the chair to extend this meeting until we to complete the items on the agenda, or at least complete the public hearing for the 2025 budget.
Second.
Any discussion?
Pushing it to the end of the agenda.
No, we're doing it right now.
Oh, yeah.
We're extending the meeting
Oh,
by bylaws.
oh,
I
that's right.
I should have requested an extension of the meeting at 9 p.m.
We haven't gotten this late, so we haven't gone through this process yet.
Yeah. I suddenly
Okay.
realized I had a
Yeah.
problem at 9:30. So with that, all those in favor of extending the meeting, please raise your hands. Opposed? The vote passes by a vote of 6-1. Mr. Town Manager, as we go through the public hearing, would you like to make a presentation first, or would you go straight?
Yeah, I'll be real quick and precise. My alarm is set for 3 a.m. So under our town charter, we're required to hold a public hearing over the budget. However, this is not the only opportunity for the public to weigh in on the budget. They can weigh in at any point up until we actually have the adoption of the budget. The board is going to have a workshop at our next meeting where we'll go over the budget as a council with much more detail. So this is not a time where we're looking for council input. It's simply to hear if the public has anything to say about the budget. And I will leave it at that.
Then the town clerk shall read the title or subject matter, the title of the subject matter in this record.
Yes, subject is FY 2025 budget presentation information.
Actually, budget public hearing.
I'm so sorry. Budget public hearing, pursuing Keystone Town Charter, section 10.6, is that correct?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
In that case, I declare the public meeting hearing open. And at this council meeting, we will have this public hearing on the town of Keystone 2025 budget. The council will listen to your comments. At the next council work session on November 12th, the council will provide recommendations to staff on changes needed. These changes may include changes inspired by your comments. Additional work sessions may be scheduled if needed. At the council meeting scheduled for November 26th or December 10th, the council will consider the budget for approval. Your comments are important to the council and will be considered in our deliberations. The following are the procedures for this hearing. First, we'll hear the report from the town manager, which we just did, on the budget, and then we will take public comment on the budget. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Please line up behind the podium. Once your turn to speak, please say your name and where you live, own or work in Keystone. Neither the council nor the town manager will answer questions or respond to your comments during the public hearing. Following public comment, the public hearing will be closed. So is there anyone who would like to speak? Is there anyone online who would like to speak?
No, not correct.
Since there is no one desiring to speak, then in that case, I'll declare the public comment period and close the public hearings. Before we go off on this subject, did anyone have any specific questions for the town manager? He went through the process very quickly. Helps be 9:30. And any very abbreviated reports anyone would like to make, Mr. Town Manager? Emphasis on abbreviated.
Yep, East Keystone Bridge, where it was falling into the river, has been fixed. So, yay, our first major public works project, we're happy about that. We've got HOA meetings coming up, like we talked about. One issue I do want to bring up, before our next meeting, we're having the county meeting dealing with the IMTPR, that's prioritizing projects for CDOT. There are no projects in the priority list from here. I will be bringing up 3 projects for us. The first is dealing with all 3 of our problem intersections. The second will be dealing with multimodal pathways, walkways on Highway 6. And the third priority I'm going to bring up from Keystone is possible parking issues on Highway 6. And that'll be my abbreviated report for today. I'm going on vacation. I will be out of town till next Tuesday, and that's why my alarm is set for 3 a.m.
Any report from?
And we have a quick report from our community development.
I make it quick.
Go ahead.
Really quick. I'm gonna apologize. Welcome to the world of land use. As you know, about 2 months ago, I put out an RFP for the master plan. Based on that RFP, we received 7 or 8 consultants that were interested. Andrew and I and John reviewed those 7 or 8 and selected the top 3 based on the criteria and what was in their RFP and for what we felt likely met the needs of the Keystone community. With that being said, last Thursday, the 17th, the Planning Commission heard the top 3 consultants speak. They spoke each for 20 minutes with about 10 minutes worth of questions. And based on that, those 3 interviews, the Planning Commission recommended SE Group for the consultant to handle our master plan. The reason I'm telling you that, number 1, it's very exciting. 2, would you like to meet that group to get a feel for them? Because there will be a contract that needs to be signed by council for what we retain. That's all I got.
So that's somebody else. We'd like to meet you. Yes, yeah.
Oh, and as you all know, we got $100,000.
Can you give us a quick rundown on the timeline now that we have that?
I'm waiting, we don't technically have the grant until we sign the contract, so Kate McIntyre is working to get the contract drafted up as soon as possible. After we sign that, we'll be able to sign the contract with our selected. I mean, it should happen over the next, before the end of the year, everything should be signed, done, and moving along.
And what are the contractor SE groups? What's their timeline? How quickly would they get going?
Based on their proposal, I believe that one was, 10 months.
They'll get going right
About-
now.
about 10 months.
They'll get going and
Kick it off as soon as they
the
get
contract is signed.
Thank
There'll be a lot of heavy lifting by Andrew and I, to get them the information they need and for that public outage.
Thank you.
Um, Am I right that I've heard that perhaps sometime before the next council meeting, there may be an announcement on the first pathway going along Highway 6? There might be.
Yes. No, we are moving along very well and very cooperatively with the developer. It deals with CDOT, so you have to go through a bunch of hoops, but we are absolutely adamantly moving forward. In fact, we just got the revised design that extends it actually onto Vail Resorts property.
Moving with what? I'm sorry.
Oh, the sidewalk, I apologize.
The Brightwood.
The Brightwood sidewalk, along Highway 6, I apologize.
So I would say the council can certainly press that we now have the designs for our first stretch of Highway 6.
They may be revised, but, we're certainly moving in that direction with regards to, design making.
Could the town staff put out a press release to that effect?
Yes.
Anything else? Any report for the mayor and council? Councilmember Permit?
Wait, questions for them?
Oh, you want questions? Go ahead.
No, that was the question. Were you asking for our report or questions
No.
about the report?
No, any report you have to make.
One brief report. So the text messages that I had to you and John today, I did get to the bottom of the excavators up on Lower Tenderfoot behind the Sanctuary Enclave LPV. They are building a new trail and decommissioning the old 9149 trail that nobody used because it's a steep old road grade that goes up to the power lines there. The Forest Service contracted builders, that's why there's 3 mini X's up there. And where they're directing this trail is from a similar location to where the cutoff was at the top, closer to the gate by the bottom of the left trail on North Ray Gulch Road, so that's at the top. And they're bringing it all the way down to right there. The bottom switchback on the incline trail, which answered the big question, number one, which was like, where are you planning on putting the trailhead access? Because this is all private land. So they're bringing it here to an existing trailhead. And then the second question was like, are there going to be motos going through our backyards? That's going to be non-motorized. So that's the answer. And then the third question was, can we please collaborate and have communications around any projects that immediately for us? And they said, well, this is back from 2002. I still never saw the emails. I don't know if any of you all did, but I get all of the Forest Service ones. I never saw this project proposed, but they said, yes, we'll try and chat with you. And they invited town staff to chat with the district ranger.
Thank you.
And I've also requested the town manager chat with the district ranger about getting notification of any Forest Service projects that potentially would end in this town. Any other, does council have any, Councilmember Davis?
Very quickly, CML Policy Committee met for the first time last Friday. Councilmember Kerr and I both attended virtually, as did a lot of other people. Long list of areas that they're interested in. Councilmember Kerr and I discovered that you can make a lot of decisions based on texting back and forth. We were in agreement on every vote. Probably the most controversial one was the empty home thing, which was almost exactly tied. So as we go forward, now that we know the process, they were also, I thought, fairly late in sending out the agenda. As we know the process, I think we will meet and we'll also send out the issues to the council for any comment. So the policy committee that we attended, it takes input from all the municipal members. And then based on the votes of their interests, this grassroots interest, they present it to the CML board. CML board does not always agree with what is recommended to them, because in the middle is the legislative policy plan. And one of the things they have to do is look for a legislator who will sponsor the bill. So there were several things that came up for which they expressed some reticence or concern. And I would say, you tell me if you're getting this wrong, that they were not enthusiastic about the empty home tax, but it will go to the CML board.
Any other?
Real quick, because I disturbed when I heard one of the citizens talk about, gosh, you're talking to council people. We have coffee with the council. Monday, I need 2 volunteers. The one, anybody else volunteers at 4? Yeah, that's the first Monday of the month.
That's what was it, 9 to around 11?
Yeah. no,
Yeah,
it's-
it was like an hour and a half, but it lasted longer. Yeah.
Okay, so they're all gonna move one more. So maybe John.
Work the time.
Okay.
Be careful, if you have 4, it has to be publicly noticed.
Well, we're only,
It's on the floor.
All right,
we have one right now for sure. Okay.
you too,
It's
No, I'm not gonna be.
It's the 4th of October,
Okay.
but isn't it,
or November.
so thank you. It is true that the town publicizes.
Yes, we're gonna do some good advertising.
But it can be publicized, but it's
That's not the
still,
same.
that's not the same as
Okay,
public
just-
notice.
No, we don't notice them, so it's gonna be,
Okay.
yeah, right, okay, so that's,
Yeah, so that's the issue I ran into this last week. Yes,
So, my memory has not really blitzed on me. We had the first reading on the model traffic code, right?
yes.
When do we see that again on a second reading?
It's on November 12th.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Councilmember Pagano?
I definitely want to see if we can ask staff to investigate the comments today during the public section about emails being sent and then not necessarily being paid out. With that being said, a constituent did email saying that they were thankful we installed the solar lights on the bridges over the snake. So
We
thank
did.
you for keeping us safe.
that was the last. I think,
Did you say we did not?
we did not.
Someone else did. No. We don't care if we did it. Put it like that.
It had to have been the resort.
All right, anything else on that portion? Any other?
Right there.
Councilmember Permit?
Just super brief, this evening, I was told by a constituent that, hey, they're putting up gates to do trail closures in the open space that borders the town in the dump. And I find that a bit concerning, especially like I know we had some words with the open space about letting us know about stuff they're doing on our doorstep. So I sent an email saying, hey, what are these gates for? They're intended closures, and I'll report back when they reply.
So you keep saying they, are we talking county?
County open space.
Okay.
It's county land, but the closest residence to that county land is our residents of West Hills.
Anything else? Last item, very quickly, scheduled meetings. We have a scheduled meeting for December 24th. And I would like to propose that if we get the budget approved on time,
I am definitely going to be bringing a motion to have us cancel that meeting.
all right.
I mean, the next, yeah,
Does any,
I won't be here.
any member of the council not support that? All right, so in that case, there's your guidance. With that, I believe we've addressed all the items on our agenda, and without objection, I declare this meeting adjourned.